The countdown is on. We only have 53 days left until Christmas, which means we have approximately 51 to 52 days of creating and crafting. So are y'all ready to jump into our 2023 Christmas series? Hello, my darling friends. Welcome back to my channel. It is so good to see you all. It is so good to have you here. If you are visiting for the first time or you're new to my channel, welcome. It is so nice to meet you, and I'm so happy that you stopped by. I am so excited about today's episode and many episodes to come. We are kicking off our 2023 Christmas holiday series. Y'all, I'm really excited. If you've been with me for a while, you know that Christmas is my favorite time of year and I tend to just get crazy. So I have so many fun projects coming your way over the next several weeks. We are going to be Christmas crafting, DIYing some home decor, Christmas home decor, decorating. It's just going to be all things Christmas. So I'm very excited to spend this holiday season with y'all. Okay, so without further ado, let's go jump right into today's projects. Are y'all ready to craft? I am so excited about today's projects. So our first one, we're going to be creating some really neat ornaments, and we're going to be doing some fun techniques on these. So you will need just some clear plain ornaments that you can paint on, some paint colors of your choice. I will have the colors that I am using today listed in the description box for y'all if you want to use the same color palette. So the first thing we're going to do is get one coat of paint on all of these ornaments, and that first coat is going to look really weird. You don't get real good coverage, but that is okay. And then I'm just putting them on these skewers so that they can dry really well. So we're going to go ahead and get our first coat of paint on all of the ornaments, and then we'll move on to our next step. All right, so at this point, I've gone ahead and put 2 coats of paint on all of my ornaments. And this is where we are going to start to have a lot of fun. So for the 3rd coat of paint, you want to cover your ornament really well. And while the paint is still very wet, we're going to cover this whole thing with flour. And if you haven't guessed yet, we're going to turn these into like some suede looking like ornaments, and I think these are going to be so pretty. I think y'all are going to love them. So I am using a sifter to do this because I do feel like the finer your powder or your flour, the better results. So I go ahead and coat the entire ornament with the flour and then set that aside to dry thoroughly. And so here I'm just putting a 3rd coat onto this ornament, and I'm going to repeat this same exact process. It is very important for you to let each layer of paint dry really well before moving on to the next step. Our 3rd layer of paint has now had plenty of time to dry. So now we're going to come in with a very soft brush, and you want to make sure this brush is very dry also. It is important to make it soft too. If the bristles are too rough, then it's going to wipe off too much of your flour. So we will wipe off any excess, be very gentle with this step, and then we're going to come back in and do another layer of paint. So at this point, your paint will kind of start to have a little bit of texture and it'll feel a little bit gritty. That's good. That's what we want here. So we're going to go ahead and do a 4th coat of paint, flour them up really, really well, set it aside to dry thoroughly, and then we will come back and repeat that same exact step with a 5th coat. And after the 5th coat, your ornament should be fully ready and fully sueded, if you will. So that's what we're going to go ahead and do here, is do this 4th and 5th coats of paint, and then we will come back in. So this is after everything has dried, after the 5th coat, and we will just gently brush off any of the excess flour on the outside of your ornament. And now you can really see this thing come to life. And y'all, look at this. I love the result here. There are a lot of steps, there are a lot of layers of paint, and it does take some time, but it's well worth it because look at the results. Aren't these gorgeous? So I did pull all the little end pieces off of these, and I spray painted them all with this really pretty antique copper gold color. So I'm just going to go ahead and continue brushing off, just very gently brush off all the excess flour and put the caps back on my ornaments. I know this project is a little bit time consuming, but it's so well worth it in the end because y'all, look how gorgeous these are. We accomplished this with paint and flour. Can you believe that? They really do look like suede. I just love these. I think they're going to be so beautiful just left in a bowl like this, or they'll be beautiful on your tree as well. For this project, we are going to be embellishing these pretty Christmas ornaments that I found at Hobby Lobby. And I did take the caps off of these, y'all, and spray paint them. If you get these same ones, do be careful. These caps were like a weird, flimsy, to me, they felt like aluminum foil. So if you use these same ones, just be aware of that. You have to be very careful with them. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and have some fun embellishing these. And I'm just going to use a whole bunch of different pine boughs and just, some Christmas picks and whatnot. And I'm just going to start by creating a little base all the way around the top of my ornament first. And once I get that base built, I will come in with some different types of branches just to add a little interest to this and change up the texture. Just add some, some different textures in here. Once I'm feeling good about the base, I will probably come in and add some, some pine cones and some fun little berries. But this is one of those projects where you just get to do you, be creative, and have fun with this project. I really love these little berries that I am using here. I found these at Hobby Lobby, and I really love them because they're almost like a glass bead or like a glass berry, and they just really shimmer and they add a lot of extra bling to these. So I really like them, especially the way the light kind of bounced off of them. So those berries are a lot of fun. All right, y'all. So I'm going to go ahead and create a second one, and oops, a little bit of clumsiness going on there. Anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and just create the second one, and I'm going to just repeat that same exact process of just layering on lots of different pine boughs and Christmas picks and some pine cones and berries, just lots of different elements to give this a lot of life and fun. And to finish these off, I'm just going to string this really pretty silk ribbon through the little loop at the top of the cap here, the ornament cap. And I will just tie it into a knot, and then I kind of flip it around so that the knot is sort of hidden underneath some of our pine boughs here. I also think if you had, I love this creamy colored ribbon, silk ribbon, but if you had gold, I think that would also be very stunning. If I had gold in my stash, that's what I would have used, but this creamy ribbon is just as pretty. So what do y'all think of these? Didn't they just turn out so fun? I really like these, and I think this is just, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. It's a really fun way to dress up just a plain ornament. For project number 3, we are going to need some crochet thread, some crochet yarn, some styrofoam balls that keep wanting to run away on me. And these are 3-inch styrofoam balls. I found these ones on Amazon, and I will have them linked in the description box for y'all. And then we're just going to need some fabric of choice. So I'm going to start this project out by first folding my fabric. I'm layering 2 pieces on top of each other, and then I'm going, because I want to cut multiples at a time, and then I'm going to fold it in half. And I have this really neat ring. It helps me cut circles. I got this as a gift, so I'm not sure where it came from, but I'll try to find one for y'all, and I'll link it in the description box. But this is the easiest way to cut circles. So you just choose the size that you want and then trace it on there, and then you cut on the fold so that when you open it up, you have a perfect circle. And when I cut my very first one, it was way too small. So that's why I'm cutting a second size, or a different size here. So I am using 3-inch foam rounds. And to cover the 3-inch foam rounds, it actually took a 9.5-inch piece of fabric. So the first one I cut way too small. So if you do the same size round, you want to cut a 9.5-inch circle with your fabrics. So I've gone ahead and just cut out a whole bunch of fabric here. And now what I'm going to do is just string a needle, and I'm just using like a darning needle here, and then I'll tie a pretty good size knot at the bottom of this so that it can't pull through my fabric. And then we will just start gathering this all up. So to do this, you're just kind of weave your needle in and out from front to back, and go all the way around until the whole thing is kind of puckered and gathered. As you come to the end of your fabric round here, I do pull our starting piece out because we actually want 2 long strings. So I pull that. You can kind of see how I'm pulling that out. I'm taking my needle off, and then this is my starting string, and I kind of pull that out so that my 2 strings sort of end up being this approximately the same length. Then I will kind of open it up a little bit, and we're going to put our foam round into the center of this, and then pull those 2 strings together really tight so that that fabric closes up at the end of your closes up at the top of your foam ball. So if you have a little bit of foam showing, it's okay, because in the end, these are going, that part's going to get covered up. But this piece of fabric was one that I originally cut that was a little too small, which is why I went back and cut all the rest of them a little bit larger so that you don't see any foam at the end. So here I'm just going to go ahead and do one more of these with y'all, and I'm just going to weave this in and out, in and out. You go front to back, front to back, front to back until it's all gathered around your needle. And then once my needle gets kind of full of the fabric, I go ahead and pull the whole thing through, and then I'll just keep doing this all the way around. So now we have all of our foam rounds covered with fabric, and we are going to string all of these together to create a garland. So to do this, I'm going to be using this really long doll needle, and I will have this linked in the description box for y'all. It does make this project a lot easier if you have a really long needle to do this. So I'm going to go ahead and just string this with our crochet yarn, and I am just using some very thin crochet yarn here to do this, and it feeds through that needle pretty easily. I kind of just bend it over, make a little loop, and then squish that loop together, and it kind of goes through that eye of the needle really, really well. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and poke this through the center, and the ends where we've closed it up and gathered it is where you want to go through first, because we want those all to be facing the same direction. So I poke it through the fabric, and then I kind of just use my tabletop to push it all the way through. So here I was kind of thinking in my mind it would look kind of neat to have a bead in between each one. So I started out doing it that way, and then after I got these first two done, I decided I did not like that bead in there at all. So I end up taking it out and just stringing them all together without the bead. But if you like the bead, by all means put it in there. So I'm just going to go ahead and keep stringing these together. And one little thing too that I should mention is you want to leave your long end of your string attached to the ball of yarn, because that way if you need more yarn, it's really easy to just scooch it all the way down that ball rather than having to cut a whole brand new piece. So just leave it attached until you get to the very end, and then you can cut it off. I hope that made sense. All right, y'all, so here's what I meant by why you should leave your yarn attached to the skein, because I did actually run out of yarn here. So rather than having to cut another piece and tying two strings together, I just leave it attached to the skein, and then I can unravel some and then slide my styrofoam orbs across this. And that way you don't have to worry about trying to figure out exactly how long of a piece of yarn you're going to need. Okay, so now that I've got all of my orbs strung, I'm going to go ahead and cap them off, tie them off on the ends. And to do this, I am using a wood bead on each end. I do like the wood bead on the ends. I think it just gives it a nice, clean, finished look. So I string the bead onto the tail end of my yarn, and then I'm going to make a big loop here, and then tie a knot at the end of that loop as close to that bead as I possibly can. And then that will finish off our garland. I am really, really liking this garland. I just think it has a lot of country charm to it. Okay, so I did want to let you guys know that I used 3-inch foam rounds to create this. I have 22 of them strung on this, and 22 3-inch foam rounds made a 6-foot garland, which is a really good length for like your fireplace mantle if that's where you want to hang it. Next project is one that's a little nostalgic for me. We are going to be creating some finial ornaments, and I remember these from my childhood, and lately I've been seeing them in the stores a lot. So I thought, how fun would it be to DIY some of our own? So for this project, we will need some wood rounds, an assortment of finials, some glue. I'm going to be using some E6000 and some hot glue. So my objective here is to glue the finials to the top of these wood rounds. However, they were a little too round for the finial to sit on there properly. So I did take these out to the shop and I sanded them a little bit flat on the tops and the bottoms just so that the finials would sit better on the wood round. So this is kind of what I'm going for here, is to just create this cute little ornament with the big finial on the top and then taper it down to a smaller finial on the bottom. So I'm using a little bit of E6000 to attach this with some hot glue, and I'm just using the hot glue for instant hold so that I can continue working on these and I don't really have to stop and wait for that E6000 to set up. So I've got the top piece on, and now I'm going to go ahead and just glue the bottom piece on, and I'm going to make a few of these just using a variety of different size rounds and finials. These are a lot of fun. I'm having a lot of fun making these. I could probably just sit and make dozens and dozens and dozens of these, but I'm sure y'all don't want to sit here and watch me make dozens. So we will just go ahead and move on to painting. So we have all of our finial ornaments assembled, and I'm going to go ahead and get a coat of paint on these. The color that I'm using here, it's a folk art brand. It's the metallic, it's in their metallic line, and I'm using antique gold. And this paint had really good coverage, so it only took one coat of paint for me to get this base layer down on all of these finials. So I'm going to go ahead and finish painting all of these with that base coat. I'm going to let that dry really, really well, and then we're going to come in and do a little bit of accent colors over the tops of these just to kind of give them a little bit of antiquing and, you know, just give them that worn, aged look. All right, now that our base coat has had plenty of time to dry, we're going to come in and do some dry brushing on these finial ornaments. And I am starting out with the color Rust. It's a folk art brand in the color Rust, and then I will come in with some antiquing wax and go over that. I am using a very, very dry brush and a very gentle hand to do this, and I kind of just sweep it on, almost kind of like you're sweeping the floor. That's kind of the technique, I guess, or the brush stroke that I'm using to go across these. It's just kind of a quick sweeping motion. And y'all, I really like the way these end up looking with just these added layers of dry brushing. It really brings a lot of visual interest to these and just elevates them, because I was really feeling like that base coat, it's beautiful on its own, but it did feel just a little flat. So here is a comparison. So the one on the left is the one that we've given just some extra attention to, and then the one on the right is just our original base coat color, and I really like the difference. This adds just so much to these ornaments. So here they are, all finished. Y'all, these were so fun. I really love how these turned out. What do y'all think? For our very last project of the day, we are going to be making some faux sugar cookies. So I will be using all these cute little wood cutouts. I did cut these out myself, just using some cookie cutters that I had on hand to trace the pattern. Then we will need some scrapbook paper and some drywall compound. I know this sounds weird, but stay with me because this is going to really add a fun element to our cookies. And then we'll need some glue, some scrapbook paper, some scissors, a brayer if you have one, which really isn't necessary. So to start out, we're going to just trace our cookies onto some scrapbook paper, and our scrapbook paper is going to be kind of like the frosting on our cookies. So I'm just going to trace the shape out and then cut. Oh my goodness. And then get them cut out, and we will move on to frosting our cookies. If y'all don't have a scroll saw or a laser cutter or, a way to cut these wood pieces out for yourself, I have seen pre-cut shapes very similar to these in the craft stores. I've seen them at like Hobby Lobbies, Michael's, even the dollar store. So that's a good way to recreate these if you can't cut out your own. All right, so now that we have all of our frosting pieces cut out, we're going to go ahead and do some painting. I want to paint the base of our tree, and I'm just using some Waverly Antiqing wax to do this. And then I'm going to go ahead and come in and paint the little hats for our snowman, and I'm just painting them black. Now we can start putting the frosting on our cookies. And I am using wood glue to do this. And I just sprinkle a little bit on and then use my brush to kind of spread it out. You probably don't want to use a super good brush to do this, especially if you don't wash it right away, because that glue could possibly ruin your brush. I've learned that the hard way. So I just spread the glue, and then I'm just going to add the frosting right to the top of our cookie, and then I just kind of use my brayer to press it down really well and get out any air bubbles. If you don't have a brayer, it's no big deal. You can use your fingers. They do the trick just fine. So after I get all of our frosting layers on, if the papers has been cut just a little bit bigger than your cookie piece, it's a really good trick here to just take your sandpaper and just kind of sand the edges down a little bit, and it brings that paper back to the full shape of your cookie, and it actually makes it look like it was just frosted right on there. It gives it a nice clean edge. Okay, now we're going to have some fun, y'all. So I have mixed up some drywall compound with a little bit of water, and I just mixed it to the consistency of a pretty thick milkshake. And then to brighten up this compound just a little bit, I'm adding some white chalk paint to this. And then you want to mix it really, really well. We are going to use this drywall compound to just add a lot of fun to our cookies. I'm going to pretend like this is a very thick consistency royal icing. So I'm just using my brush and I'm dabbing it onto like the cuff of our mitten. And then I decided this flat brush wasn't working very well, so I moved to a stippling brush and then started to just pounce it on, because I wanted this to have a lot of texture, and that pouncing is what really did lift up the drywall compound and give this a lot of texture. So I'm just going to go ahead and repeat this entire process over all of our cookies. On the stockings, I just do the cuff. On the hat, I do the little pom-pom and then the bottom part. And then on the tree, we're going to do something really fun. We're going to give it some snow-covered branches. So on the tree, I am just coming in with a little bit of our frosting, our thick frosting, and just going over the branches like it was just a fresh snow, and it's like the first snow of the season, and it's just barely covering the branches of the tree. That was kind of the effect I was going for here. So I just dab it on very lightly, but then I kind of let it run a little bit so we get a little bit more of that natural snow shape. On our snowman cookie, I am going to cover up pretty much his entire body with this. I did put the hat on and trace my little line so I would know where to stop the frosting. And so I just pounced this all over him to give it lots and lots of texture so he really does look like he was made out of snowballs. I'm going to go ahead and glue on his hat, and I'm just using some wood glue to do this. And the compound mixture is still really wet when I did this. That's okay though, just be really careful so that you don't smear it. Okay, so now we are ready to give our cookies a little bit of extra embellishments. And y'all, honestly, if I was making sugar cookies, I would do the exact same thing. I used to make sugar cookies and decorate cookies all the time, and I really went overboard with frosting embellishments. So my faux cookies are going to be no different. I did let this drywall compound dry for 24 hours though before I moved on to the embellishing step. So for our little mittens, I'm just going to connect them with some wire, and I wrapped it around my paintbrush to just give it a little bit of a curly cue, and then kind of stretched it out a little bit, and then strung it through the mittens, curled the top part and smashed it down so that it can't pull through. And I think this is just really cute. And then I'm going to top it with a ribbon, and that's going to finish off our little mittens. I don't really want to get too overboard with the embellishments on these. I want to keep them kind of simple. So for our snowman, I'm going to go ahead and paint in some eyes and some buttons, and I'm just using the end of my paintbrush to do this. I dip the end of my paintbrush in the paint and then dab it on, and it gives us a perfect little round. I did let that paint dry for quite a while before moving on to finishing his embellishments, our little snowman's embellishments. So I feel like we just need to give him a little scarf and then add a little something something to his hat. Oh, I think he is just so cute. I really like how the snowman turned out. So for the trees, I'm also going to keep the embellishments very simple. I just put a little bow and then a tiny little pine bough at the end. And on our hats, I'm going to add a hanger. Well, I add hangers to all of these, but I did a lot of that off camera. But you kind of get the gist. So I'm adding a hanger to this with this cute little candy cane striped string that I found at Walmart. And then I decided we needed to add like a little pom-pom to the top of his hat. So I had these little miniature pom-poms, and I hot glued that to the tops of the hats. For our stockings, I'm going to string this bell through some homespun fabric that I just tore, spruce up my bow a little bit, and then I'm going to hot glue it straight to the top of the mitten. And then just keep embellishing. You know, you can have so much fun and be so creative with embellishing these cute little faux cookies. I think the sky's the limit here. I really think these faux cookies would make darling tags for your gifts, for your packages after they've been wrapped. I think that's what I'm actually going to end up using these for. Originally, I thought it would be fun to put them on my tree, but now I'm thinking it would be so fun to use these as gift tags on all of my packages. My gosh, I had a blast today, y'all. I had so much fun working on all of these projects. Every single one of them are my favorite. Do y'all have a favorite from today's projects? If you do, which one's your favorite, or are you like me and just love them all? I really don't think I could pick a favorite if I had to, because they were all so much fun for me, and I am looking so forward to styling them all throughout my house. I'm actually getting very excited to decorate for Christmas just in general, but I'm gonna wait just a little bit. It's a smidge early for me personally to decorate, so I am gonna wait a little while, but I can't wait to style all of our projects from today and share with y'all how I styled them. So be looking for that video, because we are going to do a big Christmas decorate with me very soon. All right, y'all, that is going to wrap up today's content. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate y'all so much. I look forward to seeing you again next week. Until then, y'all take care, and I will see you soon. Bye.